where you've had a close-up magician do stuff, okay? And you know that it's just a magician, okay? And you know there's some trick to it. But every time you do it, you go, oh. And even when they tell you how they do it, the next time they do it, you still go, oh, right? And the way we create our subjective reality is like that. It keeps tricking us. So, going to get Einstein in here somewhere because he's a smart guy, okay? So, 2 quotes. The major problems of the world are a result of the difference between how nature works and that way people think it works. And I'm going to hopefully try and move that gap a fraction closer. And Einstein said, no problem can be solved from the same level it was created. We need a different quality of mind to solve our current situation, because it was our current thinking that created it. So we can't go there for the answer. Right? That'd be like looking under a lamppost for your keys just because it's light there, even though you left them inside. You're not going to find the answer. So, are you ready? I'm going to share a couple of principles. Number 1, our feelings come from our thinking. 100%. Now that's just words. But look behind those words. What that's saying is our external environment do not create how we feel. Sometimes it might look like this. That what happens in the outside world actually determines how we feel. Our circumstances, our events, the people, our relationships determine our level of well-being. So, if you come home and you walk into your house and the ceiling has collapsed, you go, ah, I love that light. Oh, look at my carpet. What's going on? I can't have my party on Saturday. Oh, I'm in a bad mood. It can look like that, yeah? If something terrible happens to us in the outside world, almost sometimes it looks like it's mandatory that we must feel bad. And society will tell us this. It keeps telling us this. What I'm suggesting is something a little different. Well, not actually a little different, completely inverse. Just get a little bit, I'm going to go a little abstract even more just for a moment. Our brains, the way our brains work, this implies our brain's a camera. And what's going on out there, we take in and then we respond to it and how we feel. It's not. It's more akin to virtual reality. Our brain is constantly creating and perceiving our subjective reality. It is constantly making up our experience. There is a live data feed, i.e. the outside world. There is one. I'm not saying this chair doesn't exist. But I can quite easily go inside my head and think about lying on a beach in Australia, and the chair doesn't really exist for me in that moment. It still exists out here, but it doesn't exist for me. But our brains are so good at not showing that we're creating and perceiving at the same time. It does it so simultaneously that it looks like it's coming from the outside. We've got this special effects department in our head called our consciousness. A special effects department that Hollywood would love. And we're so good at making things look like they're coming from the outside straight in. They're not. If they were, every single one of you would have the same experience whenever they came across something in the outside world. Now, I know some people love dates and some people don't. I know some people love brown cars and some people don't. And not only am I talking about different people here, I'm talking about us. So we can come in and see our ceiling falling down and go, oh my God, what's going on? Help! It's raining in here. And then later we can look at it and think, huh, I kind of always did want to redo the ceiling anyway. And I've got insurance. And while we're doing it, let's do the walls. And nothing's changed in the external world. You change your quality of mind. So, Our experience is being created inside our brains at the same time as we're perceiving it, so simultaneously we don't notice. So actually, a more accurate model is this. It's not our circumstances creating our feelings. It's our thought. And when I say thought, I don't just mean those cognitive conscious thoughts you have, okay, the ones you're actually aware of, because we know we have a thing called an unconscious or a subconscious. That's creating our feelings too, but we're just not aware of them. But it is still us, and it's a closed loop, the bottom there. Nothing can get in that loop. So, do you know what this means? You're like this. Having a stressful job is impossible. Technical impossibility to have a stressful job. Why? Well, because it's technically possible to have stressful thinking about our job, but our job itself is not stressful. It's only our thinking about our job that's stressful. Because two people can have the same job and one can be really stressed and one can't. And you can do the same thing at the beginning of the week or the end of the week on the same job. So it's not the job. But the world tells us, oh, changing jobs is stressful. No, it isn't. Our thinking can be stressful. This may sound like a bunch of words, but when you insightfully see this, and what I mean by insight, you inside see this and you realize it, it's hugely liberating because your attachment to what needs to happen in the outside world goes down and your quality of mind goes up. When your quality of mind goes up, your ability to access all those wonderful things like resilience and creativity and connection with others just innately happens. When we're down in low quality of mind at the bottom here, our level of consciousness makes it look like the outside world is doing something to us. It makes it look like what's going on out there is real. When we're at the top there, it doesn't matter. So let me ask you a question now, just inside your minds to reflect. And I'm sure you can all probably relate to this. A time when something hasn't gone brilliant for you in the outside world, okay, and then later on, it was okay. Actually, it was fine. And actually, it was probably one of the best things that possibly could have ever happened, yet nothing has changed in the outside world. Just nod if you've experienced that. Yeah? Sometimes when that happens, we don't even give ourselves the credit. Oh, well, I think the other person got better about it. Oh, I think, blah, blah, blah. I found, things like our bank balance, we're very good at doing that. So bank balance is on the outside, right? So there's a number there. And sometimes we can look at that number and go, oh, well, that's not big enough. What am I going to do? My wife wants more money. Blah, 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 blah. My kids want to go to university, whatever it is. And it can create some feelings for us. And other times we look at it and go, oh, that's okay. So, number 2. If this is all about thought, if I'm saying the source of our experience is always our thought, then it might be useful to know where does it come from. And what I'm going to suggest it comes from is ourselves or the wider universe, the formless energy of the universe, and it's always on offer. It's always possible to have fresh thought about something. It's always possible to get into high quality of mind. We're only ever one thought away from high quality of mind. One thought away. Nothing needs to change in the outside world for you to get it. You just need to see it. Bing. It's like when sometimes you wake up in the morning and you've been having a dream, and for the first minute or so you still think you're in the dream. And then you go, oh, it's just a dream. Whew, I'm glad. Guess what? Same hardware and software that's creating that can create the thing in the waking life. We just don't conditionally think like that. So, it's available to do this. Linked to number 3, which is a self-regulating system. I.e., there's nothing we need to do to access this. It's in here anyway. We've been looking for it all over there and going on retreats and whatever. It's inside. And let me show you how I know this is true. My 2-year-old, quite keen sometimes on tantrums. We know the tantrum? So we'll go to the shop. He'll want to play with everything inside the shop. He'll pulling it off the shelf, and I'm going, you can't do that. I pick him up, move him. He gets, for about 4 minutes. Guess what? How is he 2 minutes later? He's fine. He's better than fine. He can't even remember having a tantrum. And you're saying, you really need to behave. And he's going, what? Why? Because he has the tantrum. He's in low quality of mind. He doesn't think himself. He doesn't do any thinking about that. He just goes, and then he's back again. If you cut your finger, what do? You don't have to talk to... No, you're going to have to heal now. Come on, you're making me look bad. Will you hurry up? We've got a timeline on this. You let it heal. We allow our physical bodies to heal using the kindness of the system. We have that mentally and emotionally available to us as well. If we understand the system. If we understand the principle that that happens, we don't overburden ourselves with thought. If we overburden ourselves with thought, it plunges us down into low quality. If we let the system get on with it, it's a self-regulating system, like our 2-year-olds do, because they don't know they don't need to do that yet, right? They just do it intuitively. No one's taught them, when you're 2, you do this, when you're 10, you do that. They just work with the system. But we get conditioned out of that by our over-reliance on the outside world. Just checking time, because I talk too much. Okay, so let me just nutshell this. Now, this is big, big, big stuff. And if you just get that much, then hopefully you might be open to see something. Our quality of mind comes from our thoughts, nowhere else. The only thing that makes our quality of mind go up and down is us, our thoughts. It's not our events, our outcomes. It's not our other half. It's not our boss. New thoughts are available at any moment in time. High quality of mind is available to us in any moment of time if we understand that's where it comes from. The system's self-correcting. And here's something I find liberating. The worst thing that can happen to us, ever, is just a thought. And if we don't like that one, there's going to be another one along in a moment. That's just the nature of thought. It comes along. It's transient. It's formless. And if we let that one pass, another one will come along. And if we allow the system to do its job, it will be a better one. So, I want you now just to glance back down to that piece that you wrote and ask yourself, just inside your head, and what do you know now about that? That challenge you wrote down on a piece of paper, what do you now know about that? Just a thought. And I don't know how many of you might be having a higher quality of mind experience when they're looking at that going, that? Whoa. Wasn't writing that for 10 minutes ago. That's what my 2-year-old could do if he could write, okay? So Jonathan's going to take us a bit more of a practical explanation of this. How long have I got? About 4 minutes? 2 minutes. Good. All right, that's what I wanted. So in 2 minutes, quality of mind is the key determinant for acceptance to change and organizational performance. It is often invisible. Therefore, we overlook it, or we think it's fixed and we're going to have people in a bad mindset because that's just how they are. Or the self-fulfilling prophecy kicks in. It's hugely pervasive. When people's quality of mind goes up, not only does work get better, everything gets better. And it can enable competitive advantage because people will outperform their training, outperform their skill level. When people are on high quality of mind, they're on flow. They just get stuff done. And we can talk about it with, the way we use it with organizations is sometimes we explicitly talk about it like I am with you now, help you see a little bit of the understanding. We don't tend to do it in 40 minutes, we tend to do it in a few days over a period of time. Or we implicitly use it, which is what Jonathan's going to show you, of how we use it in change without having to explain exactly what it is. So the last slide I'm going to show, which Jonathan's going to be the first one he's going to show, is the recipe for how we really think change works is enabling people to have a quality of mind that gives them all those things, and a sound business case, of course. Okay, I'm not saying that doesn't exist. But the key part of the behind-the-eye change for us is this quality of mind and how people can access that. Now, in my last 20 seconds, I'm just going to invite you for kind of the rest of your lives to just be curious about what I've talked about this afternoon. Because I know from experience that it can be massively liberating when people insightfully understand where their well-being comes from, when they realize it's an inside-out world, not an outside-in world. I'm not saying the outside isn't important. I'm not saying the outside doesn't have an effect. But it's not what causes it. Okay? So we're going to do some questions at the end of Jonathan's bit as well, unless I've got 1 minute for a... Have I got 1 minute for a question? Yeah.
And you want to improve their quality of mind. What do you do? I mean, is that where awareness comes? Like,
well,
yeah. Awareness will improve the quality of mind of the people, or there's another tool or technique?
So explicitly, we would then talk to people about the understanding I've really quickly talked to you about this afternoon, and they'd see it for themselves, because this is an inside-out thing, okay? So when people see it, and they work with this in prisons, in communities with lots of crime, when people see it for themselves, everything else changes by itself. So there's no tools, because tools just get in the way of thinking. And we also use it implicitly, which Jonathan's going to demonstrate a bit later. I don't know whether that answers your question. So do you have another question now, or is it time? Time? Okay.
And then Jonathan's.
Thank you. I'll be back at the end to answer any more.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much, Piers. How many of you have noticed the colors on the tables, the balloons, the straws? How many noticed the Lexus keys? There are no Lexus keys. Now, speaking about keys, may I share a story about change management that happened to me just last week? How many of you have used the new U drives? I think they call them a Taurus or the Taurus. The new U drives. There are new U drives, okay? So I wanted to use a U drive. I worked in the North Admin. I wanted to attend a meeting. I went to the U drive office, the new one in the tower building. And I asked for a car. They gave me the key. I was like, looks like a new key. They said, yes, new cars. Excellent. I went there, and it is really a fleet of new cars, and I loved it. I opened the car, and I wanted to start it. And it won't start. The key does turn, but it doesn't start. I thought that something is wrong, because sometimes I run into the wrong car. They are all open sometimes. I got out. It's the same car. It won't start. And I was in trouble. I have to attend the meeting in 15 minutes. I have absolutely no chance to find another car now, because if it's either now or never. I literally went to YouTube to learn how to start a 2013 Taurus. And the only video that I saw was, it seemed that was an advanced Taurus. There was no keys. You have to press the button to start it. And I had to wait for 3 minutes of downloading to read that. The only man around me was the one who was cleaning the cars. And I didn't know. I didn't want to ask him. The other option was to go back and ask the ladies about how to start a car in the U-Drive, in the U-Drive office. And that's definitely not an option. So thank God, after 10, 15 minutes, one of my colleagues was passing by. He had another U-Drive key, so I was like, okay, he certainly knows. And he was like, oh, you have to insert this stub somewhere in another, I don't know, hole in the car, and then you have to wait to hear the beep, and then you have to start the car. And I went like, and why on earth do we have to do this? I didn't know. Anyways, to cut the story short, I went to the meeting, came back, went to the ladies in the U-Drive office. I asked them, don't you think you should tell us about this change? So she was like, well, look around you. We have instructions all around. Anyways, I came to a meeting about this event, and guess what the motto was? Change is a process, know where to start. So it was really an interesting coincidence. So moving on to the next speaker, Jonathan Pilgrim. He's a co-founder of Making Change Work, a culture, organizational development, and people change management consultancy. Pilgrim has 20 years change management experience with expertise in gaining buy-in from many disparate stakeholders, working alongside third party with a great ability to converse with both technical, IT teams, and business users. The topic that Jonathan is going to talk to us about is using metaphor and creativity to embed change. Using metaphor and creativity to embed change. Jonathan Pilgrim.
Good afternoon, and let me please reiterate what a wonderful time Piers and Jones and myself are having here, and how fantastic the hospitality's been. This isn't my first time in Saudi. I was here a long, long time ago, and what I've noticed in the very short drive from the end of the causeway to the Aramco compound here is how some things have really changed. You've got lots of new malls. You've got lots more traffic, but I've noticed that there's a few things that remain the same. It took us, seriously, it only took us 10 minutes to get from the causeway to here, but we saw a crash, okay? And it was a big crash. And so more traffic, but some of the driving, perhaps the driving hasn't changed yet. So some things are the same. Sorry? It got worse, yeah. It's probably got worse. Okay, so I'm going to pick up from where Piers left off. And as he said, we're going to spend some time looking at implicitly how we can use quality of mind to help not just yourselves as individuals, but to help your teams and the organization move change in the direction that you need it to get moved. Oh, let's try this one. There we go. And what you've probably seen, I guess, is everybody's got some stuff on their table. Okay, please feel free to start opening it, looking at it, and stop just wondering what it's there for. Because we're going to start using, later on during this session, the stuff that's on your table to help explore how metaphor works and how you can use metaphor to communicate to the organization. Now, to give a bit of an understanding of some of the issues that people face when communicating is words can mean different things to different people. And we will explore that a bit more in a minute. But just after lunch, I was told that you got some Lego. And I didn't understand what that meant, because in our country, we call it Lego. And the chap who was talking to me said, we got the Lego for you. And I didn't know what he was talking about. And yet I had asked for there to be lots of Lego. So what you will find, although it's not on your table, but get prepared to come up to the two tables at the front, where you'll see some more resources that you can start to play with yourselves. Okay? So this session is going to become a very interactive session. And I'm probably only going to talk for about 15 to 20 minutes of it. And the rest of the time, you guys are going to be working and recreating some metaphors and some stories so that you can represent them to yourselves and to other people, maybe other tables in this room. Now, I know you're going to find that really easy, because all through today, there has been story after story after metaphor after metaphor. In fact, it started with our introduction here with the child moving from one class to another class. Okay? And then all the way through, we had another story about parenting children to do maths, or math as you call it. We call it maths. And so there's loads and loads and loads of stories. So you guys are really good at coming up with these things. What we'll be working on is how we can use those stories to a real positive effect, how those stories can help us with our quality of mind and with organizational change. So this was the last slide that Piers put up. And it's basically saying, from my point of view, that there are two key principles to change. One is you need to have a sound business case. Okay, there needs to be a reason to do it. And the other thing is that we need all of those qualities of meaning and clarity and resilience and creativity and better relationships and less emotional attachment to enable that change to happen. Okay, so let's look at the first principle, okay? The business case, the sound business case. Now, earlier on, we heard, I think it was Rahman or Jones, somebody saying, it was Jones actually saying that when he died, he wished it would be in a lecture, okay? My view is it would be reading a 200-page business case. Especially one with complex spreadsheets attached to it, okay? And yet, an awful lot of organizations seem to think that the sound business case and the spreadsheet is what is the determinant and is what is going to actually deliver the benefits of any change program, okay? Now, perhaps that's not true in its entirety. Perhaps what's needed is something else. And one of the reasons that may not be true is that the business cases are full of words. Okay, and what we're going to find out in a minute is that each and every one of you, because you're individuals, will hear and process the words that you're hearing or reading in a business case differently. So whilst the sponsor might think this is the greatest plan and the greatest vision in the world, other people may struggle to buy into that. Business cases tend not to create desire, and often they will create fear of the unknown. So, let's do a little experiment. This, I believe, is the simplest sentence in the English language. There is not one word there with more than 3 letters. It has 2 nouns, 1 verb. You can't get a more simple sentence than this. Now, what I'd like you to do now, just for 5 seconds, is close your eyes, or you can keep them open, and just imagine and create a picture about a cat on the mat. Okay? When you've done that, just raise your hands. Fantastic. Right. Who would like to tell me about their cat? You, sir. Can we get the mic there? Can you tell me about your cat? What did your cat look like?
Okay, I can just visualize a cat being very tired.
Tired
she's,
cat?
Yeah, she's sleeping, just trying to relax.
So it was a she, it was a female cat?
Yeah.
And what color was that cat?
White.
White.
Yeah.
Okay. Did everybody else in the room have a white female cat? Oh, we had 1, 2 white, 3, 4 white female cats. Okay, who'd like to tell me about the mat? So, somebody else put their hand up.
Circle mat.
Yeah. Let's hear about somebody else's mat. Jamal.
Oh, the mat.
Yeah, the mat.
The mat had flowers on it.
Wow.
And green leaves on the flowers.
Uh-huh.
It was very soft.
Wow.
And it had cat hairs on it.
Okay, so we've got a white female cat on a mat with with cat hairs on it, and it was very soft. Now, has everybody in the room got exactly the same picture as this? In fact, we've only had 2 people. Has anybody in the room got that picture? Okay, the female cat over here, and Jamal's mat. No. Okay, and yet we've got one sentence, the simplest sentence in the English language, and you guys, there's some PhDs in this room, there's some MBAs in this room, and we can't agree on the cat sat on the mat. So what happens when we then go on to really complex business cases with organizational change words and paradigm shifts and what was it, homogeneous stuff and everything else? How on earth, if we cannot agree with this stuff, can your organization understand what's in the complex business case? Okay. The second part of this is to find out, we need to get people thinking and buying in and aligned to what's going on in their minds, and so we need the high quality of mind, okay? Now, we've just established that 100 people in this room will have 100 different views of what's happening, and that's why we're all individuals. Now, when it comes to where projects can tend to go wrong, you will find, actually we saw a slide very similar to this, the McKinsey slide earlier on today, that 70% of projects fail before you even start doing the work, i.e. before program planning or project planning is complete, 70% of projects fail. Okay, and a lot of the reasons for that are up here on the screen. But a lot of it is around lack of clarity of scope, unclear vision. Okay, I'm not going to read them all, but it comes because not everybody's bought into where you're going. Not everybody is aligned to not just the direction, but the specific point of what you're trying to achieve. Okay. So one of the ways that we can look to help the organization become a lot more productive is to help getting individuals having a higher quality of mind. Okay, and that means getting people to have emergent dialogue, having the opportunity and the freedom and the empowerment to be able to explore things creatively and to be able to share what those things are. Because without it, we're going to be operating probably lower down the axis down here. And when people have really low quality of mind, they won't want to have the change happen.